Good evening, folks. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a great time. Hope your week has been as interesting as mine has been. Last week, we couldn't come on because it happened to be my birthday. So usually my birthday is always very quiet. So it's always a time of reflection. I'm always trying to take my time, be by myself, try and see what it is I've done in the year previous, and try to map out where I'm going in the coming year. And as the average African would say, by God's grace, we will be putting things in place and we will be moving forward. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's been very interesting, that's been taking the attention of most Nigerians in recent times, and that's the issue of agitations. But before we start on that, we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back shortly after this. Hello. Well, studying Tunisia is something that we've been on for quite a while now, for about a month and a half, trying to test the waters, test the market. Tunisia is a very beautiful country, and you need to check it out. You need to go to their website, studyintunisia.net, and go and see what's going on there. For those of you who have been suffering the economic crunch, which is the Naira falling dramatically against the pound and the dollar, it might be something that you probably might want to look at, because they have much lower tuition fees, and then they've got exchange programs which you can look into, and then you can see if it's something that's worth your while. But I'm sure it's something you will want to check out. Now, most people have been watching the Euros as well. I actually have to start on this too. First things first. Let me tell you, all you English people, all my English friends, it is only the semi-final that you have gotten a spot in. You have not won the cup. Why do you want to finish us with jubilation? Just cool down first. The real game of men is just starting. So you guys calm down. All right, take it easy. Okay? So now, a lot has been happening in the past couple of weeks when it comes to the issue of agitations and all of that. We saw where a new form of agitation has come to the fore, which is the Odua agitation. The most prominent person when it comes to the issue of that Odua agitation is Sunday Igboho. And he was actually trying to push a rally in Lagos State, where they were going to be, agitating for the secession of the west of Nigeria, and for the west of Nigeria to have something similar to what the prescribed IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra organization, has been trying to push. This has become very disturbing to not just the federal government, but for quite a few people who would actually prefer to have a united Nigeria. Now, I don't know how many people out there, believe in a united Nigeria, and I don't know how many people believe in secession. We will talk quite a bit about the historical perspective of all this stuff that's going on. You'll be quite surprised, I'm sure, if I'm going to mention to you where the initial agitation started from, as in the first region to actually say, you know what, we probably should go our own separate way. We'll show you that. But first, a Lagos rally took place, and as usual, a lot of people with all the complaints that they've had about the Nigerian police, even though the federal government has said that they were trying to reform the Nigerian police and trying to get the Nigerian police to be a bit more people-friendly. But at the Lagos rally that was held yesterday, it was unbelievable what we saw. It's all over social media, so I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but we'll show it to you, and then you have a quick look at it. See.
I said earlier, the protest is now, those are gunshots, sporadic Now look at him. He was not a protester. He was just passing by. But he is being chased around to be arrested by men of the police. Now, there have been 3 tear gas already. You can see I'm wearing all of this because we've had to work with this tear gas being shot in the air. It's worthy of note that despite all that the police is doing, the protesters are still stubborn, neck deep into choosing to protest, despite all of the attacks by men of the police, as well as now look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Now that's. We're actually being stopped by the police. We do not seem to be able to film. As I speak with you, the heavily armed policemen are right in front of me.
Okay, Mary,
right in front of my camera.
Now, considering, the record of the Nigerian police, that's some very, very courageous reporting by that lady over there. And it is quite shocking that they will still be doing things like that, when it is supposed to be a peaceful rally. But were they actually primed simply because of the events that have taken place in the past week? So there was a shocker in the initial, and that initial shock was the arrest of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the proscribed IPOB, Indigenous Peoples Organization of Biafra. How did they manage it? It still seems to be an issue that is a very, very strong bone of contention for most people. We have tried to get a few experts, to speak about it, but most people are still trying to be very cautious in their approach to it in terms of expressing their opinion and expressing their views. There's a lot of fear all over the country right now, not just the fear of the Nigerian government, but also the fear of this organization. It seems quite a few people will not speak or will not come out to speak on these issues on camera simply because they fear reprisals. And I can't say I blame them, because when you look at the magnitude of uncivil behavior, let me just put it like that, that's going on in the country, a lot of people do have to be wary. Even I myself, I have to be wary. I have actually gotten threats before and all of that, but maybe it's just me. I keep doing what I do, regardless of whatever is going to happen. We'll just keep trying our best, A man will die one day, as they will say. But a lot of people are actually worried. A lot of people don't know what to say. So you have 3 types of Nigerians. You have the Nigerians who are in support of secession. You also have the Nigerians who believe in a true Nigeria. What you see is that the majority of Nigerians are the quiet ones, the ones who just sit on the fence and just really truly not say anything. Now, do I blame them? No. We all have a right to actually decide what it is that we want to do. Choose sides if we decide to choose sides, and not choose sides if we decide to sit on the fence. Now, Nnamdi Kanu was arrested in Kenya, according to his brother. Now, Nnamdi Kanu being arrested in Kenya raised quite a lot of questions. The first question was where he was arrested in the first place. After the questions around where he was arrested, then the issue of the legality of his arrest then came up. The legality of his arrest being that a lot of people were actually of the opinion that there was no extradition process. But when you want to talk about an extradition process, are there set precedents in terms of how, Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and how he was deported to Nigeria? If it was out and out an illegality, would he have been rearranged almost immediately when he was brought onto the soil of Nigeria? So plenty of questions, So if you're a legal expert and you're watching this, we'd like to hear your opinion. We'd like you to say something. Let us, hear your views on this and all that. Now, the issue of secession is something that apparently has been going on for several years, almost from Nigeria's independence. The funny thing is this: a lot of people do not know that the first call for secession was actually, the mantra was actually Araba. Yes, you heard right. Araba is separate or divide in Hausa. That was where the very first agitation came from in Nigeria's history. This happened in the early 60s when the Hausas felt that they were being intimidated and they were being marginalized by the Igbos, who happened to be a majority of the elite. 60% of Nigeria's armed forces, when it comes to commissioned officers, were actually of Igbo origin. The Supreme Military Commander of the Nigerian Armed Forces was an Igbo man. The President, Nnamdi Azikiwe, was an Igbo man. The head of service at that time, Nwa for a reason, was also an Igbo man. And then when you looked at the civil service structure of northern Nigeria, you also had a majority of the management being of Igbo extraction. Now, should this have mattered at all? I don't think so. I think that when you're from any part of Nigeria and you're eligible to partake in the politics or the socio-economic activities of that area, you should be allowed to do so. It's part of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So why has that become an issue? Now, the issue came from the distrust over the issue of the 1966 military coup. I think for me, in my opinion, that was the actual crux of the matter. A lot of people up north had their misgivings about the fact that a couple of leaders in northern Nigeria were actually killed. Also, in the southwest of Nigeria, there were quite a few questions that were asked over the fact that a few of the Western leaders at that point in time were also killed in that 1966 coup. But the primary targets of Eastern Nigeria were not killed. Probably the only person that was killed from Eastern Nigeria or even had any close connection to Eastern Nigeria was Festus Okotie Ebo. Aside that, there was no one else. So that in itself, raised quite a lot of issues. But the funny thing is this: there's always a story behind the story. So when you look at the logistics of the 1966 coup, they had very limited logistics. They had very limited logistics going on for them at that point in time. Now, I'm not saying that that's probably the reason why, they did not happen to carry out, their targets for the entire coup as they should have, or they intended to. But that was also a factor. But a lot of people would have asked, why was that a factor only for Eastern Nigeria and was not a factor for the West or for the North? Kaduna Nzeogwu was actually a very, very northernized Nigeria. And that was the irony of it. He spoke better Hausa than he spoke Igbo. So, how the entire issue unraveled to a point where Nigeria got to the civil war is unbelievable. As a matter of fact, it was in July, the same July that we're in, that the first shots were fired of the civil war in Cross River State, when federal troops decided to, take offense or make an offensive, as the military. I'm not a military person, so I don't, know their terms or terminologies. But they did make an offensive against the hill where the Biafra soldiers were actually encamped. And that first offensive was led by the then Major Mohammed Shua. Of course, we all know, or most of us, have heard a few stories around the Civil War, the horrors that took place, which are almost a natural consequence because there's no war that is actually civil in any way. It's civil in terms of geography, but it's not civil in terms of the way people treat each other when they fight, especially when they go with arms. Stones, sticks, whatever, name it. It is no longer civil. One's arms are involved. So we all know the horrors. We know of nearly 2 million children that suffer kwashiorkor in eastern Nigeria. We've heard of the naval blockade and how, eastern, Biafra, as then, was sandwiched. And so many people lost their lives. Now, has Nigeria healed from all those? No, Nigeria has not healed. Because if Nigeria had healed, we would not be where we are. You will not hear a Nigerian saying out and out that somebody is evil, somebody is Hausa, or somebody is Yoruba, and that leading to any form of distrust. We will not be distrusting each other along ethnic or religious lines. But unfortunately, we have found ourselves at that point. So you now have a call for secession coming from eastern Nigeria. Of late, there are calls for secession coming from western Nigeria. Now, the man at the core of the secession agitations, the initial fellow, is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Now, he was not the first. As a matter of fact, one of the major champions when it came to the call for Biafra. Yes, his name was Nnamdi Azikiwe. Isaiah as far back as then. Not that you could blame him under the circumstances at that point in time. Everybody had their own, like I said, they had a right to their own leadings for their own different reasons at that point in time. But he also was a champion of the Biafra, the call for Biafra at that point in time. The country was deeply divided. A lot of people felt that Nigeria was a lopsided contraption put together by the British, people being forced together. Now, the North that initially started the agitation, they stopped because the people that initially were calling for that agitation were soldiers, but they were NCOs. NCOs are non-commissioned officers. Now, non-commissioned officers basically meant that they were not educated in the Western education. They were educated in Islamic education. The North was actually very, very literate, but they were just not literate in the Western education. A lot of them went to Quranic schools, madrasas, and all of that. So they knew how to read and write in Arabic, which of course is an international language as we all know. So you can't say they were not literate. They were literate. But simply because they didn't have that Western education, quote unquote, a lot of them were not commissioned as officers. A lot of them were commissioned as non-commissioned officers, or enlisted as non-commissioned officers, so to speak. They were the ones that were initially calling for that secession and saying Araba. So they had to be convinced by the likes of T.Y. Danjuma, the likes of Yakubu Gowon, and the likes of Muisola Muhammad, that it would not be in their best interest for them to be a landlocked country, facing a lot of hostilities coming from farther up north, which of course, you're talking of North Africa. And then they're closer to the south if they had good relations with the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Niger Delta. Fortunately, nothing happened. But as Nigerian history will go, a lot of irony, a lot of twists and turns. Shortly after that, Araba incident. A man, little heard of, someone who I think should have been celebrated, extremely so, in Nigerian history, not because he tried to secede from the country, but because he actually had the guts to stand up for his people. A lot of them still suffering till today, and I'm talking of Isaac Adakaboro. Isaac Adakaboro was calling for a United States of Niger Delta or something like that. I can't remember precisely what it was. But this was a man who stood up and said, you know what? You can't take our resources and then destroy our environment at the same time. So he founded the Niger Delta Volunteer Force, trying to secede from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When I said ironic, twists and turns, the man who actually slam dunked Isaac Adakaboro, as in thwarted that call for secession, was Colonel Emeka Odimegwu Ojukwu. Now you're getting the general gist. That's the irony behind it. Ojukwu thwarted that. Now, Ojukwu could have possibly thwarted that, maybe because if the Niger Delta had seceded, Eastern Nigeria would have been landlocked. They would have been stuck between the north, the Hausa North, the west, the Yorubas, the Niger Delta, and Cameroon to the east. Totally landlocked. Maybe that was what he was fighting against. Who knows? But he was one that actually thwarted it. He led the offensive. He was the one that went after Isaac Adakaboro and made sure that that secessionist agenda ended very, very quickly. Shortly after that, the agitation for Biafra started to rise. Why did it rise? Well, it was a breakdown in communication when it came to the issue of the Aburi conference. So several of them were called, by a Guardian General who decided to wade into the matter because of the socio-political influence of Nigeria when it came to African matters. They all went to Aburi, they had a discussion. Ojukwu went very well prepared. But apparently the likes of them did not go prepared. Ojukwu even recorded the session, every single part of it. Now, it was said that on the flight back home, Ojukwu and his team were jubilating because they knew that the federal government had agreed in principle to all their terms and conditions. And they also knew that they were not prepared. They probably didn't even know what it was that they agreed to. Fortunately or unfortunately, you now had the super PAMSEC. So for those who are pretty young, they probably don't know what it is. They think that the PAMSEC of today is the PAMSEC of back then. No. So these super PAMSECs were superpowers when it came to Nigeria in itself. They wielded extreme influence. And they were very, very bright and educated people. Now, a few of them sat down and looked at the proposal that Colonel Ojukwu had proposed to the federal government, General Yakubu Gowon particularly, and they now asked him, why would you agree to this? Because basically what this means is that you're giving powers to the regions and you're taking away all the powers, more or less, from the center. The Super PAMSEC that headed the team that actually looked into it and advised the federal government against it later went on to become the late Oba of Benin, Eredua. Twists and turns of history. Like I said, when it comes to Nigeria, our history is very rich. I don't know why we don't tell our own stories ourselves. But anyways, now, of course, the federal government now looked at Eastern Nigeria. They looked at Colonel Ojukwu and said, you know what, we are not going to agree to this. This is not going to work. Ojukwu, of course, felt quite embittered because, as he said, in principle, we had agreed. So why would you renege on this? My people are being killed by the day. A lot of people had been asked to leave wherever they were and come back to Eastern Nigeria if they did not feel safe. So, of course, there were hordes and truckloads of people moving back to Eastern Nigeria. As of that time, I'm not sure exactly what the population of Eastern Nigeria is or was then, but we know that today the population of Eastern Nigeria is roughly around 40 to 50 million. So even if it was half of that, and 10% of them were actually moving from different parts of the country, we are talking of a mass exodus of 2.5 million people. That's a lot of people to be moving at any point in time. Now, should General Gowon have handled things a bit better at that point in time, seeing that level of exodus? Should there have been better communication? Should Ojukwu have backed down a little bit? There are so many sides to Nigerian history that a lot of us actually do not know the truth anymore. Why? Because so many agendas where Nigerian history is being written and rewritten by different people. One of the most famous accounts in relation to the Nigerian Civil War was by the great Chinua Achebe himself, and it was a book called There Was a Country, or There Once Was a Country, something like that. That was probably the most effective account given so far There are several books that have been written by other people in relation to the civil movement who have told their own stories. Even General Olusegun Obasanjo wrote quite a few books. But like I said, everybody has their own agenda. Everybody's always speaking their own, lingo in trying to get their message across. Unfortunately, Nigeria has now found itself at a very, very deep abyss. Excuse me. Where nobody, like I said earlier on, trusts the other. So far, you are not from the same village. And it is as bad as that. So the Ijebu man will look at the man from Owo and say that I don't think you and I can live together, you and I can work together. But yet, you are hearing a call for Odua Nation. Same thing goes for Biafra. Same thing goes for Northern Nigeria. You have so many nations within the nation of Nigeria. You have 774 local governments. Almost half of that number are actually nations on their own. So when we are calling for agitations for secession, how exactly do all these calls, how are they supposed to work? Now, the federal government decided to go after the leaders of the present agitations. The first was Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, like I said earlier on. Now, Nnamdi Kanu, I don't know exactly what happened. But from all accounts so far, Nnamdi Kanu, a dual citizen of the United Kingdom and Nigeria, traveled to Kenya, according to his brother, and then he was arrested there. Apparently, it seems he had been arrested for upwards of a week by the Kenyan authorities before he was handed over to the Nigerian authorities. His brother claimed that he had been badly beaten, humiliated, and embarrassed by the Kenyan authorities before he was actually handed over to the Nigerian authorities. His lawyer came out and said that his heart had enlarged from the torture that he had undergone and maltreatment from the Kenyan authorities. Now, I don't know how the lawyer, was able to ascertain that, because I don't know if he was allowed to have doctors to do comprehensive tests on him for them to have been able to do, to ascertain that his heart had enlarged. But like I stated earlier on, we keep, hearing different types of stories, different types of agendas, and you're just not sure what is what. So now, when the waters are so muddied in most cases, how do we start to look at issues objectively? It becomes a problem. But anyways, now Nnamdi Kanu was handed over to Nigerian authorities and was brought back to Nigeria. He was rearranged in court for jumping bail. IPOB had been prescribed since 2017, and the Nigerian government had declared it a terrorist organization. If his organization had been declared a terrorist organization, a lot of things, could be woven around his arrest. But a lot of people are asking, is it humanly possible for him to have been extradited, so quickly from Kenya? Where are records of the extradition process? Who was there? Who was not there? Where are the documents that were signed for his extradition? Now, is this extrajudicial? Is this against international law? Some people are saying the British government should have stepped in because he was a dual citizen. I'll answer that in a short while. But first, the issue of his extradition. Now, there was a similar case just a few months ago, where a Nigerian, a social media star, quote unquote, by the name of Hush Puppy, was arrested by the FBI in Dubai. It was actually a case of he was initially arrested by the authorities in Dubai, and he was then handed over to the FBI, who now took him back to the United States. When the Dubai authorities were asked, where is Hush Puppy? The response was, he has been extradited back to the United States. When the FBI was asked, where is Hush Puppy? They said, Hush Puppy is with them. It was handed over to them by the Dubai authorities. So they flew him back to the United States. Nobody mentioned extradition when it came to the Americans, because there was no process. There was no such process as an extradition hearing that anybody saw or heard. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that is the legal thing to do. I'm just trying to say that when it comes to government, a lot of things happen that nobody knows how to deal with. So in a lot of cases, it is the relationship between those governments that determine how the matter is handled. So we also saw a case where a journalist was killed by the Turkish embassy, or rather the Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey, Khashoggi. What happened at the end of the day? Because of the relationship between the Saudi government and the United States government, the United States government took a step back. There have been a lot of issues around this type of stuff happening intergovernment. Nobody, no personnel or no, group of lawyers can actually stand and start to face governments. The best you can do is go to court. So in this case now, Nnamdi Kanu was brought back to Nigeria. No extradition, no extradition papers, no hearing, no nothing. We had nothing. He was brought back to Nigeria. Was it legal? We don't know. Was it illegal? We can't say at this point. But what we can't say is this. He is back in Nigeria, and the first step that the Nigerian government took was to take him to court, which is the proper thing to have done, to follow the judicial process. So he's going to be tried now. And I'm happy for the likes of Eninaya Abaribe, the senator from Abia State, who was one of the shorties that stood for Nnamdi Kanu's bail, because he himself was at risk for the fact that Nnamdi Kanu jumped bail initially. So at least he will get some reprieve at this point in time. He can move on and continue to do whatever it is that he's doing as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, Nnamdi Kanu is going to face charges. Is he going to go to jail? We don't know. How long is he going to go to jail for? We don't know. But one thing we do know for a fact is this. It's probably not the solution to Nigeria's problems at this point in time. Definitely not the solution. But anyways, some people, have actually written to the British government and said, Nnamdi Kanu is a citizen of the United Kingdom. And as such, some form of diplomatic, intervention should happen at this point in time to make sure that they take care of their citizens. Now, I will have to point out, because this particular question was broached as of yesterday to me on Facebook when we initially posted the promo video for this particular episode. Now, for the fact that Nnamdi Kanu is a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and also a citizen of the United Kingdom, if Nnamdi Kanu has an issue in Nigeria, the level of intervention that the United Kingdom can take is absolutely minimal, because he is on Nigerian soil, where he is also a citizen. If it was a case of they were stepping in when he was in Kenya, then the United Kingdom could actually go with full force and say he is a citizen of the United Kingdom, regardless of whether he used the UK passport to go into Kenya or the Nigerian passport to go into Kenya. So I think that distinction should be very clear. For record purposes, links will be posted, below this video after this episode for you to actually see, for you to actually check what consular services are and legalities around it when it comes to interventions for citizens or dual citizens of countries, and how those matters are handled. So we need to be clear on that. We need to stop, throwing shade. We need to stop throwing confusion. A united Nigeria is better than a Nigeria at war. If Nigeria is going to separate, the most effective thing to do is for it to happen peacefully. A lot of us did not see the Nigerian Civil War. A lot of us did not see it. We've only heard stories. And the stories we heard appalled us. So imagine the people that were actually there. The people that went through all the horrors. There is nothing good about a war. Absolutely nothing. So Nigerians need to take a step back, look at issues, and start to ask themselves, how can we achieve our goals? If you're a true Nigerian, you need to speak up and say, you know what, Nigeria, it's time for us to work together. If you do not believe in a united Nigeria and you believe in Biafra, for instance, there are peaceful ways to achieve that goal. If you believe in the Odua Nation, there are peaceful means to achieve that goal. It cannot be done by the force of arms and everybody walks away smiling. That's not going to happen. Now, I don't know much. I know very little, but it's just a little that I know that I am saying, because I believe it is my civic duty as a Nigerian to be able to point out and say, look, let's try and toe the path of peace. Now, we have not spoken about Sunday Igboho just yet and the Odua Nation. We'll come back to him shortly after this commercial break. In the meantime, let me not forget to say Happy 4th of July to those of you watching from the United States. We actually do have something to say about that. So we'll be right back shortly after this. Now, a few days ago, Sunday Adeyemo, popularly known as Sunday Igboho, his house was raided by the Department of State Security and officers of the Nigerian Army or Nigerian Armed Forces, as they stated. Nobody really knows, what, uniformed services were there, as a matter of fact, but the DSS has come out to say something about the raid on his house. There are quite a lot of gruesome images, coming out of his house in Soka, in Ibadan. A lot of blood and all of that. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show that because it's too sensitive for us to actually put on screen. It's against our ethos, to showcase violence at any point in time. So, 2 people were allegedly killed. His house was raided. He himself, initially from the reports, was actually within the building, but somehow, some way, he was not there as of the time they got into the building. There was a lot of damage to the property and to the properties inside the property, that is the cars and all of that. The DSS said they've taken his international passports, his German residence permits, amongst other documents, and all of that. So some people said, if they were going to raid his house, why would there be so much damage? Now, we criticize ourselves quite a lot, and most of the time quite unfairly. When you look at countries that we try to emulate, that we try to point fingers at when we're trying to show role models, countries like the United States, the FBI, the DEA, or all of that will not go and raid a house and not tear it to pieces. And that's a fact. They will tear it to pieces. And that's exactly what happened there. So his cars were shot at, the windows were damaged and all of that. We saw images of the ceilings inside his house and all that being torn apart. And like I said earlier on, there's blood everywhere. Quite a lot of blood, as a matter of fact. And several people were arrested, about 13 people, I think, as of the last count, when they went to raid the house. Now, that is usually what happens when security forces come after you for something that they think is a heinous crime. There will be a lot of damage. Now, why was there so much damage? Why did they think it was a heinous crime? Now, Sunday Igboho, as you can see in this image here, was at a rally and he was talking about some of the people that were killed by Fulani headsmen. There has been a lot of talk about Fulani headsmen, some Fulani headsmen, as a matter of fact, and the brigandage that they're carrying out in Nigeria. Some of them are seen in broad daylight carrying assault rifles, AK-47. There have been tons and tons of reports of them actually attacking people, raping, pillaging, killing, and all of that. Now, this is not a matter that is speculation, because we can already tell from reports out of northern Nigeria itself, where most of them were coming from towards the southern part of Nigeria, and the type of brigandage that they have been carrying out there. Now, the federal government says that they are not Nigerians mostly. Nigeria's borders are porous. It brings us all back to that initial issue of how Europe divided Africa, how countries were formed, how a lot of cultural affiliations were divided along financial lines. So the Fulani, who are roughly about 25, 27 million, spread from southern Sudan all the way to the Futa Jalon in Western Africa, which is Gambia, Senegal area. Then they're a minority in Nigeria, but the borders are basically open when it comes to those areas, because you have villages where the border runs right across the village head's house. So the village is actually sitting inside the border itself. So it's very difficult to police all these areas. And it's not just northern Nigeria, you also have it in western Nigeria as well. Because I remember being in Kwara State, I remember that there's a town called Barutin in Kwara State. Barutin, you could take a walk from your bathroom to your living room and then outside your door, and you'd have been inside Kwara State, get into Benin Republic, and then back into Kwara State again. So along ethnic lines, along religious lines, the lines were just drawn for financial reasons. So a lot of tribes or nations were actually divided for the benefit of the colonial powers. So very difficult to police these areas, simply because you can't tell who is who. Especially in a country like Nigeria, where you have very little data available to you. All the agencies that have been, quote unquote, trying to harness data for quite a while have not been able to make proper use of the data. So giving out a national ID card has been challenging. But that is the issue. Those are the issues that come with running the country pretty badly. So the federal government has said that most of them are not Nigerians. So it's pretty difficult to track them and all of that. A lot of people feel that the federal government is not doing near enough to go after these people. My own opinion, I'll reserve that. But much, 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 much more needs to be done in terms of security. Everybody agrees to that. So that has led to the likes of Sunday Igboho coming out and saying, you know what, this needs to stop. So it can be seen here in this image at a rally where he was giving a quick notice to the Fulanese, so to speak, that were in that vicinity, and telling them that they had to leave. Now, if you look at him, you can see that he's wearing something on the jacket, because it seems, the way his clothes looks a bit funny, isn't it? Well, he's rumored to be wearing the African traditional jacket, the bulletproof jacket, so which is made out of charms and all of that, to stop bullets or metal or whatever from harming him or whatever it is. I don't know, but that's what it's rumored for. Now, why or how would you say that the likes of Sunday Igboho sprung up? Well, Sunday Igboho probably sprung up because Nigerians don't speak up when they need to speak up. If Nigerians were speaking up when they need to speak up, you would not have armed agitations. You would actually have people sitting down to have a discussion. and then trying to find a way forward. Now, Sunday Igboho was not arrested when his house was raided. He gave an interview to the BBC in Yoruba. He actually stated, his own side of the story, how they raided his house and all of that. He did confirm he was in the house when they were there because he, heard them speaking and he called, made calls or whatever. Well, that part was not too clear. But he said they didn't even give them the option of giving them access before the Nigerian security forces opened fire. Whether that is true or not, we still don't know. Because the DSS actually claimed that Sunday Igboho's men opened fire. After his house was raided, several arms, ammunition, were actually retrieved from his home, according to the DSS, and those arms were paraded. That this was gotten from his house. That is illegal. So whether it is true or not, that's left for Sunday Igboho's lawyers to be able to speak up for him in court and try to clear him of those charges. The Lagos rally that he was the primary promoter, the Lagos rally was quite lackadaisical. Most people that probably would have showed up did not show up simply because Sunday Igboho was quote unquote under attack by the federal government. He's wanted. The federal government is after him. They're telling him to turn himself in so that they can question him. It leaves a lot on the table for Nigerians to ask. Where are we going? How do we move forward? How do we deal with these issues? This beehive of agitations all over the country. How do we start to manage it? Now, in my opinion, if we're going to start any form of agitation, I would say that the proper thing to do is, if you believe that a certain part of the country should not be a part of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, what you should initially do is go after your representatives. You have representatives at all tiers of government, both at the local government, the state government, and the federal government. Get them to push a bill starting from the houses of assembly for a referendum. Start from there. If you probably can get 10,000 signatures in every local government that's going to participate in that referendum, Nigeria is quote unquote a democratic society. So by the time that bill gets to the National Assembly, it must be heard. So far it is passed at the state houses of assembly. I'm sure the National Assembly would hear that bill, they would read, and all the representatives who have a stake in it, whom their people have approached and said, you know what, we want to hold a referendum, must listen to their people because they're supposed to be the representatives of their own people. Let us look for civil solutions to civil issues. Nigeria should not be a country at war with itself. I have been a beneficiary of the greatness of Nigeria. Primary school in Lagos, secondary school in Kaduna, some secondary school as well in Oyo State, and then I went to university in ABU Zaria in the same Kaduna State. So Zaria is to the north of Kaduna City. I met different people from different walks of life, from different parts of the country, and some from outside of the country, because we actually have students from as far as South Africa, we have from Cameroon, and all of that. I've made absolutely amazing lifelong friends from different parts of the country, from different walks of life. One of my closest friends is from Eastern Nigeria. Two of my closest friends are from Northern Nigeria. And of course, since I'm from Western Nigeria, I have tons of friends from Western Nigeria as well. These are people that I have discussions with almost on a weekly basis. We deliberate on different types of issues. And regardless of whatever our differences are, we're always friends because we solve our differences in a civil manner. Our discussions are always civil. It never gets to the point where anybody looks at the other and says, because you are Yoruba, that's why you're speaking like that, or because you're Christian, that's why you're acting like that. It never gets to that point. And it is not because we are exceptional people or we are intelligent people or anything. No, it's because that is the nature of a real Nigerian. Most Nigerians forget that the person that they are talking to, when the person is close and dear to them, is from another part of the country or of a different religion. So this artificial division, I don't get it. I don't know where it is coming from, because if most Nigerians are like me, which I believe they are, that means on a daily basis, the people you interact with, you forget. I spoke to a friend a while ago, and the friend was like, look, you can't blame these people. It's just simply a case of the kind of jibes that they throw at them. Please, jibes are being thrown all over. Yorubas have the H factor. Can I answer the question? Can I answer it? You have that. The Hausa man, when he talked, he said, look, let me tell you, when the federal government is actually going to come up to you, they will come up to you. You have that. When it comes to the Igbo man, I mean, actually, no, therefore, let me tell you something. When the title chief like me is talking, you keep quiet from the song there. It is our nature, it's part of us, it's part of our culture, it's part of our profile, it's the beauty of diversity. It's time we all take a sit back. It's time we're also asking ourselves, should we go by the colonial history that we have been handed down, that we inherited? Or do we sit back, objectively look at our history, try to redefine ourselves, redefine our country, and start to tell ourselves some home truths? A lot of these people who are agitating, they have a plan B when things go south. Nnamdi Kanu has a British citizenship. Sunday Igboho has a German residence permit. Even I have a residence permit outside of Nigeria. So would it be fair for me to agitate for people to get killed when I know that I will not be there? I don't think that is right. So we need to start looking at things objectively. Some people have said, oh no, you need to be able to fight within and without. That's besides the point. The point is, things can be done in a civil manner. We have seen the likes of Yugoslavia, then Yugoslavia. We have seen what happened when things went south. Kosovo can never, ever, ever be the same again. If you come further, you come closer to home, you look at Sudan. So you have Sudan, then you have South Sudan. Look at what they're still going through till tomorrow. I am one person. I am one man. I have my own beliefs. I have my own opinion. My own opinion is just a tiny part, a tiny fragment of the general opinion. But my opinion is this. Let's try and get things done in a civil manner so that innocent people don't get killed. The people that suffer the most when it comes to civil strife is women and children. My mother is still alive, so I would worry about that. I have children, nieces, nephews. I would definitely be worried about that. I have aunts. I'll be worried about that. My grandmother died several years ago. I still miss her. I still miss her, dancing when I walk into my family house to go and see her. And she's asking me, Shewa Jeraisi, ya Lukman, Shewa Mumaltina. I still miss all of that. So I can't imagine any of my aunts dying in a civil strife. Yes, we're all going to die one day. But wouldn't it be better to die peacefully in your bed? If we're going to rewrite Nigerian history, let's try and rewrite it objectively. If Nigeria is going to progress as a nation, which I believe it would, because there's a lot of strength in numbers. Somebody says when you clench your fist, it is much more powerful than when you open your palm. So let's clench that fist. Let's make Nigeria a great country. Even if Nigerians have dual citizenships or multiple citizenships, they're always still proud of their heritage, which is Nigeria. I will forever be proud of it. And I hope you will also be forever proud of the fact that you're Nigeria. It's been great being on with you guys tonight. Unfortunately, our guests could not join us, but hey, that happens sometimes. But I did have a great time trying to go back a little bit in history. Our next show is going to come up as usual on Sunday, and we're going to have another great guest. And this time around, we are probably going to be talking about the role of journalism in Nigeria. The role that, I'm not a journalist, but this is a tiny fragment of what journalism is like. And we'll try and take a look at the role that journalists have played in Nigeria, and the role that they are still playing, and the whole role that we hope that they would play in Nigeria, and trying to make Nigeria a much better place. You all have a great night, and see you again on Sunday. Good night.